Good day, and thank you for joining me, Leon Guamond, for the next episode of Under the Cupola. It's me as your town manager trying to give you folks a little glimpse into the people who make Weston a very special place. Thank you for joining me for this very special episode, and we're joined today by Imaikalani Aiu. He is our town planner. Imai, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Imai, tell me a little bit about yourself. You are the town planner. What made you want to come into this profession? And tell me a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay, I came into this profession almost a little bit by luck. I have an undergraduate degree in architecture, and I'm originally from Hawaii, for those of you who didn't guess by my name. And while I was working in Hawaii as an architect, I was asked to be on the planning commission for the island of Kauai, where I worked. After being on that for 3 years, I was then offered the position as the deputy planning director. And so moving out of architecture, I moved into planning in that way. One of the things that, since I was lucky enough to get into planning without a master's degree or any type of degree in planning, as time went on and administrations changed, I had to work every election to, make sure I had my job, because as you know, people come in, cabinet people get replaced and rotated. And every time I looked at other lateral moves, they always required a master's degree. So eventually my wife and I decided, well, I should probably get a master's degree. Started looking around at places. My wife is originally from here, from Wayland, one town over. So when we looked at places I could go to school, we looked at places that she had family, which was Michigan and here in Massachusetts. I honestly did not think I was going to get into graduate school. I thought I'll take the test, but it's probably not going to work. And I ended up getting a full scholarship to Tufts University. So we came out here to Tufts, and just as I was working through it and accumulating lots and lots of student debt, I knew I needed to start working soon. So the last semester before I graduated, I got a job in Wellesley. And then after a year of that, I applied here and got the job here, and I've been here pretty much ever since. So that's how I ended up here. That's the long roundabout way of how one becomes a planner. So.
Well, that's a great background, Imai. And let me just tell you, Tufts University has a great program and a great planning program. So you came from good stock, and we're very fortunate and happy to have you here. Tell me, what made you interested in planning in the first place? Like, it's not something, you said it was by luck, but it's not something that, people who are 8 years old think, I want to grow up to be a planner. Maybe a firefighter or a police officer, but not a planner.
No, I mean, it really came through working in architecture. As the building isn't kind of divorced from its context, right? And we looked around at, as we were planning, the particular project that got me onto planning board was a renovation of the museum on Kauai. And, as we looked at it, reorienting the front entrance, where it goes, I had to look at, like, how did it approach the street? How did it, it came into a parking lot, and that really wasn't a great entrance for a museum, So we looked at it contextually and how it fit into the larger fabric of the community. And that's always kind of been, like the piece to whole relationship. So I've always kind of, even when I was working as an architect, involved myself in planning work. So, and then, it kind of, as it filters up and down through the, through the layers of, larger urban context, street to building, there's always an interaction between there, right? So even in planning, we always, you look at design guidelines because you want a certain district to look a certain way, the buildings have to front to the street a certain way. So there's a lot of crosstalk between those two professions.
So tell me about the planning department here. You have a gigantic staff, I'm sure.
Yeah, I have one other person works with me, Christine Zale, our assistant town planner.
And you work with a planning board who are elected officials. Tell me a little bit about the planning board and what their roles and responsibilities are.
So the planning board is primarily, given by state mandate, they're responsible for long-range planning in the town. So now in the planning world, unfortunately, you're going to find that long-range planning is usually something that boards do as they can. There is a lot of regulatory work. Those regulatory work comes with statutory deadlines. So we work on a lot of things are, doing our site plan approvals, doing our residential reviews. But fortunately, we have gotten into a lot more long-range planning lately. We are doing a unified plan, so that's a big project we're taking on right now. And other than that, that's the planning board, I guess, metaphorically more sees themselves as kind of like overseers of the character of the town, making sure that development goes along with what is long been termed the semi-rural nature of Weston.
Yeah. You mentioned the words site plan review. For the people, why don't you explain what that means?
So site plan review in Weston a lot of Weston is residential. We have very limited commercial area. But with so much residential area and a lot of large residential, there is an interest in managing the impact of those residential developments. A lot of them are on the scale of, construction timeframes that even take a commercial scale of the size of these houses and the times that they take to build. So there is a lot of impact and a lot of change that goes on with a lot of these houses. So when they are over a certain size, generally considered 6,000 square feet, but there's some nuance to that, or on a scenic road, they have to go through the planning board for site plan approval. And the planning board is going to look very heavily at your landscaping, your lighting, how your house sits on the property, how much grading you're doing, all with the intent of managing the design so that it minimizes its impact to the site and to the neighborhood.
Yeah, good. You mentioned the word scenic road. What is that? What constitute a scenic road here in Weston?
So the scenic roads are designated under our town bylaw, and they are designated that really the historic ways through Weston. So notable scenic roads are our main roads through Weston, Route 30, Route 20. Wellesley Street is a scenic road, Concord Avenue is a scenic road, Conant is a scenic road. So those that are traditional, older ways through Weston. If you go down a lot of these, you'll notice, especially like Concord Road, Conant Road, they're heavily forested, lots of big old trees on them, lots of historic homes. And it's those characteristics that the board wanted to preserve in going through site plan
Stone
approval.
walls is a good example.
Stone walls is another good one. They love stone walls and like to keep those, looking in the rustic nature that they are today.
Yeah, great. So what are some of the things that you and your department are working on right now?
So right now, two of our big efforts. One is we are working on a unified plan that is going to be the guiding master plan document for Weston for about 20 years to come. Our last one was done in 1965, so we're a little behind on doing a unified plan, but this is going to be a really big town-wide effort that we're going to have to reach out to a lot of the community, a lot of other boards and commissions, try and get as broad a consensus as we can on what Weston should be looking forward the next 20 years. They did the job back in 65, and it set a lot of the tone for what you see around here today. And times have changed, honestly. Times have changed quite a lot since 1965. And so we need to take another look. We have things that we have gotten far worse than we thought they were. Traffic is a big deal, right? How do we deal with that? How do we deal with that without just paving and adding more lanes? We have a lot more housing pressures today. The Commonwealth has gotten larger. It's attracting more people. We need more people to not only run at the higher levels of the Commonwealth and all those tech jobs and biomed jobs that are generating a lot of income, but service jobs that support those. What role should the town play in supporting the Commonwealth as a whole? We have climate change to deal with. Fortunately, we have a lot of trees to mitigate climate change, but is that enough to do? We have to look at, what are our impacts? What are the impacts of a commuter community where people live here and get into Boston most days to work? Is there a way where we can, minimize that impact? So there's a lot of new issues we have to tackle, a lot of new goals we have to create out of those issues, and a lot of actions that we're going to have to create that'll guide us through how we manage the town in the next 20 years.
So you mentioned the word unified plan. This is similar to a master plan. Tell me what the difference, what are we looking to do with our unified plan that is different than what another community might establish as its
Yeah.
own master plan.
So yeah, a master plan is directed by the state, and it tells you have to look at certain things. You have to look at housing, you have to look at open space and recreation, and we are going to do all of those things. But we are also going to look at some very important things that statute leaves out, like schools. And we also are looking at a lot of overarching themes throughout our master plan, things that are not considered also in that state statute, like climate change, like community connection, like inclusion for the community. Those things will be, those are topics to be addressed throughout the plan. Through each section, the housing section will talk about how housing should be sustainable, how housing should be inclusionary, how housing should foster community connections. So we are really taking this on a much bigger scale than even master plans, which are supposed to be big scale to begin with. We're expanding that even more.
Great, and we have somebody who's going to be working with us on
Yeah,
this?
we just contracted with Judy Barrett. Her firm has done a lot of work throughout Massachusetts and throughout New England. She's very well respected, has done this for more years than I've done it, for sure, and is is well known in the planning profession for working with municipalities and coming up with these and smaller level plans as well.
So tell me, if I was a resident of Weston, why would I care about this? What role will I play in this process, if any? Will there be an opportunity for me to weigh in on what the direction of the town might want to look like?
We want as much input as we can from residents because it's not really a unified plan without resident input. It'd be easy to create a plan in a bubble with just the planning board saying, here's what we want, and tell everybody, here's what you get. It would also be very, very ineffective. We need a lot of community input. We will have virtual sessions for people to give input. We will have in-person sessions. We will be going out to community events to gather inputs. We will have online surveys. We're going to try and do as much outreach as we can, and we will be working with your office to get that word out to everyone on as much platforms as we can.
Yeah, I'm happy to work with you and the committee, and I should mention, there actually is a committee that is working on this, the Unified Planning Committee.
There is a Unified Planning Committee, yep.
And there are going to be subcommittees too, by separate interest.
There is, yeah.
Yeah,
yes, there are. So we will involve more people from housing when we start talking about the housing topic.
Transportation.
Exactly.
We're talking about circulation, for example. Yeah, very interesting. Tell me about the other project that we're working on this year.
So the other project we're working on this year, and this one we are going to hope to have done by the end of this year, but it is addressing the MBTA 3A Affordable Homes Act, or Housing Choices, some people call it. But basically that is the Commonwealth's attempt to address a huge shortage in housing, a very real shortage in housing, by mandating that communities that are served by the MBTA commuter line, and they define that as within a half mile of a commuter rail or rapid transit stop, that they have to have a certain amount of by right multifamily zoning. So let me define those two terms, one, by right and multifamily. By right means you cannot deny it. They get to do this.
Meaning you guys cannot do
Yes, yeah. Meaning the planning board or the zoning board of appeals cannot say, as long as it meets the zoning standards, you have to allow this use to go on. It's the same as a house. When we put a house through site plan approval, we have to allow a house. We can say, you get the house, but it has to be this far back from the road. You have to plant these trees. You have to have no light shining on your neighbors, but you still get a house. In the same way, we will have to say, you still get to put 20 units or whatever that zoning allows on this property. You again have to set it this far back from the road. You have to plant this many trees. You have to have all your lights shining down, but you get to do that. And then multifamily. Multifamily actually has a state definition of 2 duplexes, so 4 units total, or a triplex on one lot. That's the minimum multifamily has to be. They have defined, also said it has to be an average of 15 units per acre. So that is a big shift for Weston. Weston currently runs at about most of our zone is zone A, and that's actually, zone A is a 60,000 square foot minimum lot, so a little more than an acre. and 1 dwelling unit on it. So we actually run a density of maybe 0.8 units per acre. So a lot more than what we're doing now.
Right. Yeah, no, it sounds like it. So, just to reiterate, this is a state mandate. This is something that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has imposed upon municipalities, including the town of Weston.
Yes.
I've noticed from watching the news that a number of communities have already found ways to comply. I've also saw that there are a handful of communities that have not complied or have said that they're not going to comply. The next year or two will be very interesting to see how this whole thing plays out.
Very much.
If people are interested in providing input in this, there's opportunities to do so. And I'm assuming the planning board is also interested in hearing feedback from the residents as well.
Yeah, much like our master plan, this is something that has to go on with community input. It will have impacts to someone somewhere in the town, to many people somewhere in the town. And you know, if the town chooses not to do this, that will have impacts as well. So either way, this is going to be a big choice for the town, and we will have to have a lot of people weighing in on you know, what they are willing to work with.
And this will require a town meeting vote.
Yes.
So that ultimately, the people of Weston are going to be the ones who decide what happens with this.
Correct.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you, not only on this issue, but on the master plan issue as well. Imai, I want you to pull out your crystal ball.
Okay.
It's all charged up. Tell me a little bit about what you think about the future of planning just generally in Massachusetts. Do you see any big trends coming? Do you see any big pitfalls or concerns down the road?
So I think planning in Massachusetts is the big impacts that we're going to see is, I think a trend has come, it has been getting and is going to get more regional. In 1965, just about the time we adopted our master plan, the state created the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. I work with them a lot. I am on their officers board. They look at the region. 70 or so municipalities fall under their wing, and they look at planning for that whole region altogether. You know, once upon a time, it was very easy to draw the lines around Weston, you know, when it took a horse and carriage to get here, and, you know, you didn't get a lot of effects from other towns. But now, you know, we have people from Wayland, Natick, all the way beyond coming through the town, going into Boston. There is a lot of interaction. It's very hard to think of ourselves as, or any municipality, as standing alone. We're all affecting each other. So planning on that scale in the Commonwealth has been getting bigger, and it will get bigger and broader. The other thing I think we will have to account for, and this is again not being able to keep effects, you know, at our doorstep, is, you know, climate change will force a lot of change on us. It will, you know, we've already seen king tides coming up at the seaport, putting them about a foot of water into there. We're going to see a lot of change from that area happening that will recede back into here. We're going to see people that we are going to have to figure out how to handle a lot more people, because this is not only going to happen at Massachusetts' doorstep, it's going to happen globally, where we will have climate refugees. And climate refugees are already coming to our doorstep here in Massachusetts. You know, we're not going to be immune from that. We're going to have to figure out how to handle a lot more people, and a lot broader cross-section of the world's population coming here. And, you know, how do we adequately and humanely handle those issues, I think is going to be a big one for Weston and for the Commonwealth as a whole to decide, and we're not going to be able to stand alone apart from the Commonwealth in it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you've seen, because of what you're talking about, lots of the state policies have really kind of been crafted in a way to try to think about these problems down the road.
Yeah.
You know, the increased need in housing, whether it's affordable or market rate, is a statewide problem.
It is, yeah.
And you know, Weston is being asked to try to find ways to solve it the same way as other communities around us. Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that perspective.
Sure thing.
Let me leave you with one last question. So if your office is any like mine, you get phone calls and emails all the time. What is one thing that you get asked all the time that you wish that the people of the town of Weston would know?
Okay. I get asked a lot of times, can I cut down this tree? And the thing is, don't cut down a tree, especially a big one, without checking with me first. probably are able to cut it down, but there's also a good chance that your lot has gone through some site plan approval, or that tree really isn't yours. It's the town's and it's on the scenic road. It just happens to be in front of your lot. Check with me before you cut down a tree. They are very valued in Weston, and rightfully so. They're beautiful. They give us shade. They capture carbon. They're an important resource. We guard them carefully. So before you hire that guy with the crane to come out there, check with our office first. I'm always happy to give you an answer on whether or not you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, good. It is good advice to the people of Weston. We love our trees here, and we spend an awful lot of time, Imai and I, talking about trees. Imai, thank you very much. It was a
Thank you,
pleasure
sir.
to have you here for this discussion. And to the people of Weston, thank you for joining us for this episode of Under the Cupola. Again, I'm Leon Guamond, and I will see you next time under the cupola.